a year since the NPP's Akufo-Addo, who was just speaking, took charge as president of Ghana after winning a decisive victory over the NDC in the 2016 general elections. Today, the Akufo-Addo-led administration has given its strongest indication yet on its plans to prosecute several officials of the previous NDC administration. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia today listed a number of scandals under investigation and possible prosecution. It comes on the day that the pro-NPP newspaper, The Statesman, run by a close confidant of President Akufo-Addo, also released a list of cases being pursued by the government. We'll hear from Dr. Bawumia shortly, but a quick recall of some facts here. So those are some of the facts that we're putting across to you. Government has been under pressure to prosecute former government officials deemed corrupt. The second is that government says that they need more time to be sure that none of the cases presented to court will fail. Also, something on the special prosecutor bill. Now, the special prosecutor is expected to handle such prosecutions, and the bill, as I indicated in my headline today, is at the third stage in Parliament. The bill for creation of special prosecutor office nears passage in Parliament. That's just what I have summarized for you there. So those are just a few facts for you to help you appreciate the issues. Now, today there was that big announcement. Listen. God. He's paying attention.
.419s come when we see one. And that, unfortunately, was the hallmark of the administration of former President Mahamudu. Ghanaians will find out more soon, very soon, as people are held legally accountable for all these scams. With the record that the former president has in the area of governance, it is incredible that he would have the effrontery to talk about 419 scams. We have spent $2.3 million on the National Digital Property Addressing System, and I dare say it is money well spent for the benefit of all Ghanaians. It is not money finding itself into the pockets of a few cronies. We did not spend it on guinea fowls or bus branding or overpriced mansions and contracts or ghost roads. We have spent it on something productive. As a result, Ghana has an excellent digital addressing system. If the former President Mahama can take care and some time just to read and learn about it. It was developed by Ghanaians, and we should collectively take pride in their work and not try to pull them down. Work is proceeding. We are motoring on, and the National Digital Property Addressing System will be implemented with the physical tagging of every house next year, as well as the synchronization of the digital address of each property with the address on the utility bills of the property. I should note that propaganda did not help the former President Mahama when he was in government, and it is certainly not going to help him in opposition.
So that is Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia there. So let's have a look at the list of possible scandals. Now I have in the studio here with me Malik Abbas, Dabu editor at myjoyonline.com, so he can help us, draw the lineage, so to speak, between these organizations and the sort of people, perhaps the likely, persons who will be standing trial, so to speak. Malik, you're welcome. It's been a while.
It's been a while. You haven't brought me on your show.
Well, here you are. Okay, so there is GYEEDA. And these are the organizations or the state agencies that were mentioned by the Vice President himself in that speech there. There is GYEEDA, there is SADA, there is the bus branding, there is Bawumia judgment debts, there is Kumasi Airport runway project, there is the Vice President of official residence as well. And I'm going to have a quick chat with Malik on that. Malik, let's start with GYEEDA. In terms of GYEEDA, who are the persons we're looking at?
Okay, so GYEEDA, we know that 2 people have been standing trial, and I was privileged to be covering that for Joy News from the court. Philip Asibit and Abuga Pele, who is a former member of parliament for Chana Paka constituency in the Upper East region. In fact, at the time that the prosecutions were initiated, he was a certain member of parliament when the prosecutions were initiated. So the two of them are standing trial over some 4.1 million Ghana cedis that they took to do some work, which they said, tracer studies which they said had not been done. Philip Asibit is the chief executive of Goodwill International Company. The company took the money, and Asibit was the head of GYEEDA at the time. And of course, all of this happened under, you know, that GYEEDA used to be under the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Clement Humodo was the minister at the time. There were suggestions that he himself ought to have been brought to court because he was the one who presided over all of this.
Because at the time, we understand Abuga Pele did not have the
enough
power.
Even though Abuga Pele was the head of GYEEDA at the time. Nonetheless, Clement Humodo came to court as prosecution witness. I remember also that Nuruddin Hamidan, he was the first prosecution witness for the state, and he gave his testimony. Then Clement Humodo came, he also provided his testimony. That case is still in court now. I believe that what the current Attorney General and his two deputies would be seeking to do is to fast-track that case and then bring it to a logical conclusion as whether convictions will be secured on the strength of the evidence that has been adduced before the court, or the persons who are being tried will raise sufficient doubt, given that this is a criminal case. And if they are able to raise sufficient doubt, then they will benefit from the doubt and they will walk free.
Benefit from the doubt and walk free. So in this case, at this point, based on what has happened earlier, we can put out these names: Philip Asibit, of course, Abuga Pele, Clement Humodo. These are the three names that have been associated with the GYEEDA scandal. And of course, those are the names that we're looking at. We don't know how it will go, by the way. Manik, what else do you have on your...
Yes, so we have the notorious Woyomi case. So Woyomi, in the aftermath of the 2008 elections, goes to the new government in 2010 and makes claims that he had done some work for the previous government in respect of the stadia which were being renovated for the Ghana 2008, the Africa Cup of Nations, which was staged, and he said that he had not been paid. He makes this claim. Another company with which he did some work came out and said that he didn't deserve any payment, and that whatever payments that he deserved had been made to him. He claims that he was contracted to secure some loan on the basis of which he was entitled to a certain percentage. Arguments have been made that he did not secure that loan, and therefore he was not entitled to the money. Nonetheless, he made the claim. The money was offered. He entered into an agreement with the Attorney General at the time, Betty Mori Idrisu. This money was supposed to be paid to him. The money was not paid. Then he went to court and obtained a default judgment because the Attorney General at the time did not go to court to defend the case. So he obtained a default judgment. He was given this money, and we were told that after the money was given, the Attorney General at the time then went back to court and argued that some new information had come to her personal knowledge, and that on the basis of that new information, she did not think that Woyomi deserved the money, and that she wanted the court to set aside the agreement that she herself had entered into for Woyomi to be paid this money. The court at the time asked that once they had entered an agreement, a consent judgment had been entered, and they had agreed that the money would be paid to Woyomi in 3 tranches, and the first tranche had been due, they should go ahead and make that payment so that if she came to court and proved her case, Woyomi will return that money to the state. She never went to court. Eventually, Woyomi obtained the entire sum. And then Mahamudu came into office as Attorney General and started raising questions about the propriety of this payment.
Let's try and do a little bit of fast forward with that Woyomi case.
Yeah, so Woyomi, eventually Mahamudu was sacked, and then he went to court as a private citizen and was given the contract to do this branding, and the total cost was 3.6 million. When it became public, I think it was actually the then minority leader, I'll say Chairman Sabunso, who is now majority leader. He was the one who saw an item in some audit report that had been brought before Parliament, and then he raised queries about this. It became a public matter that the Chief of Staff at the time, Mr. Julius Debra, then invited the Attorney General and then asked her to go and investigate this matter. She investigated the matter and said that the actual amount that ought to have been spent in doing the work was 1.7 million and not 3.6 million.
Okay, so
the company was thus ordered to return 1.9 million to the state.
But as to whether they did that or not, I mean, we were told. But I think Occupy Ghana, for example, was one of the groups that were asking for us to see evidence of them having paid that amount.
Well, I mean, the government response was that the money had been paid.
Okay.
And so, but of course, there were those who argued that to the extent that the government, the Attorney General herself, came to the conclusion that these people took money that they did not deserve, the public officers who signed the agreement and presided over this contract, which was sole source, by the way, those persons ought to be held to account.
Okay.
I believe that if the government is looking at that, it is these public officers that it may be considering hauling before court to
Okay,
answer.
so the public officers, they're not persons whose names we have at the moment, but as and when they do.
But we know that the transport minister at the time, Jifa Tivo, on her own, resigned in the aftermath of this
and if you recall,
scandal.
she was in the Volta region somewhere at the time of the elections when she was campaigning and asked them to vote massively for the NDC, because if they don't, there was a likelihood that she was going to go to jail.
Yes, comments that attracted a lot of opprobrium for her because they were deemed to be inappropriate and that they were divisive in nature and were ethnicized.
All right, so let's wrap up with the final one, the Kumasi International Airport's runway issues, and then we can wrap up.
So we know that the runway, if I were told that the runway and the lighting system at the Kumasi Airport had been fixed, and the cost at the time generated huge discussions because the amount was 25 million. The arguments were, in countries such as Ethiopia, $25 million is being used to construct a whole new airport.
Maybe aerodrome or something, aerodrome or something like that.
So why did the government of Ghana at the time use $25 million to construct just a runway, expand the runway, and to provide lighting on the runway and other facilities at the airport to allow international flights to land?
So this goes back to the transport minister then?
Absolutely.
The transport minister,
and I remember Bawumia complaining at the time and asking whether the runway had been paved with gold. Why did the simple runway cost $25 million?
Okay, well, we'll seek the answers from government. I think we've not touched on SADA. If we can do that quickly in a few seconds so we can wrap this up.
Well, so SADA, we know that some money had been given for the planting of trees, which our own Manasseh Azure went and proved that some of those trees were not planted, and those which were planted, and the amount here was 32 million plus. Almost 33 million Ghana cedis had been given to a company belonging to Roland Agambire of RLG to plant trees in the savannah areas. Those trees were not planted. Many of them were not planted. Some were planted, but even those which were planted were burnt by wildfires. And the contention is that there was no justification to give money to a company to plant trees, especially during dry season when there were no mechanisms in place to ensure that those trees survived.
So that was the uprooting or cutting down trees to plant trees.
Absolutely. We cut down economic trees like shade trees and planted trees who did not have economic value.
Thank you so much, Malik, for that. Do you have all of that in your head? Okay. Malik Abbas Dabo is editor at myjoyonline.com helping us with that information. So now you have an idea, the areas that governments or the Akufo-Addo-led administration is looking to target for some prosecutions, according to Vice President. The Vice President